Hi, everybody. Really excited to be back today. We're speaking with Rhonda again, and we're going to be going over some making your financial decisions, how your financial decisions are going to impact your current day and your future, and steps that you can take to start improving and getting the results that you desire. So, welcome, Rhonda. Thanks so much for joining us again today. Looking forward to our chat.
Thanks, Anna. I'm really looking forward to our chat too. Great topic, absolutely. Just wanted to sort of jump in a little bit around why it's important to even start making a plan and making a decision to do stuff with your money. And that is because if you continue to do the same things over and over, nothing changes until you actually make that decision that you want to do something differently. And the decision's not perfect. It's to look at where we are today and how to build it out from there. So if you've got the awareness of where you are, what that does is it creates you options, and it avoids quietly costing you money in the long run by not knowing what your options are. When we talk about people delaying in making that decision, why people avoid that financial side of things, it's because money is a very, very emotional part. It's not logic. It comes from our emotions. So a lot of people are fear of the judgment. A lot of them are, like it's the shame of where we are, or confirming some of their worries are really worries that they need to be looking at. The avoidance feels safe. It is a short-term answer, but in the long term, it's really costly. If we don't sit down and we start to build on your decisions of getting into financial wealth and financial building of stabilities, it's going to cost you down the road because we all know life goes fast. So when I look at the different ages in life, because everybody's going to be at a different stage and different things that you want to look at, and it's never too early to start making a plan or making a decision to get a plan in place. And it's really never too late. So I talk to a lot of people that say to me, I'm only 18, 19 years old. I don't need to make a plan. But I also talk to people on the other end of the spectrum they're coming up to retirement. They've left jobs, or their jobs have been eliminated. They're trying to find different types of work, but they're wanting to build their financial plan into retirement. And they feel at this point that it's too late to start because they haven't done it their whole life. So those are really big myths in our world and in our conversations that people have, and just, small chat with your friends and everything else. It's too early to start, it's too late to start. Oh, I've got a family on the way. So want to break down all of those myths, and I want to really, let people know that it's okay to start at any time of your life, because now that's putting things in place that is going to make your life better and make you live that life that you want to live instead of struggling the whole time, no matter how old or how young you are. And when we look at our different age demographics, when we look at somebody who's 18 to 25, let's say, um, they want to start thinking about where they want to go, their financial future. They might be in school, and right now they've got a lot of student loans, or they're, just scraping by paycheck to paycheck because they are going to school, or maybe they're not even going to school and they're just trying to figure out what they want to do. Well, starting small at that age, it builds the habits. And the habits are the biggest thing that keeps us on track and builds us success through our whole life. So never are you too young to get started into this. And then as we go through life and we start to get our career and we find our partners, or we learn to travel or anything else, that age group between 25 and 35, what they're doing is they're really building their foundation and they're really building their awareness. That's the time from this point on that if you haven't already started those habits, or even if you have, you want to get to this stage between 25 and 35 where you're really solidifying and building concrete decisions and habits that are in place that are so powerful that you're not going to slide off track. And those habits you build, they're even more powerful than the income that you're bringing in, because that's going to help you learn that habit of my income means that I'm going to build this budgeting path. I'm going to make this decision that I'm not straying from. Um, 25 to 35-year-olds, you really start to understand your cash flow. You understand what debt management is. You get the basics of it. You're really starting to build that foundation. So that's all around what we do in 25 to 35-year-olds. It's also early clarity on what you want to do. It creates your flexibility. It creates confidence for later on down the life. So that's where our focus is around the 25 to 35-year-olds. When we step back and we look at our life as we've all gone through, and we look at ourselves at 36 and 45, it's that intention of doing what you want to do in your life instead of just running on autopilot. So again, between those ages, life really gets full because during that time, you're deep into your career. You may have started a family, you may have a home that you've purchased, and you've got a lot of things on the go, spending time with family, all that. Life gets overwhelmed. So that's what I say about autopilot. You don't want to get into autopilot and just kind of go through life and let your financial strategies and your financial decisions and plans fall off the rail because then you're on catch-up time. We might have to adjust what we're doing at that point because of all the different financial obligations or your responsibilities that have come into play, but you still want to stay on your plan and you still want to stay on that decision you've made to be financially sound and healthy as you go through life. You want to protect that time that you have, not just with your money, but you want to protect that time that you have with your family too, because those years go so quickly and life changes so quickly. And it's an emotionally energy draining time in most people's lives. So you want to always remember to put yourself first and remember to stay on track with what you made your decisions to do. And then after, like when we look at ourselves from 46 to 55, um, that's the time to step back and look again and do some course corrections and and some ownership because through your years of 36 or yeah 36 to 45, through those years there are times when things are going to fall off the tracks in the course. So now we're going to look at 46 to 55 and we're going to look at our ages there and our time in our life and we're going to start to now go back on course correction and we're going to own what we've planned because retirement becomes real. At that point, we kind of sit back and we look, oh, I'm only about 15 years away from my retirement goals, which is what we talked about, that I want to retire by the time I'm 65. Well, we better get ourselves back on track so that we can retire at 55 and we're not, working at 70, 80 because we have to instead of because we really want to continue to work through those years. Um, Urgency increases because years fly by so quickly. It's that sense of urgency to get going back on track. Um, you got decisions to make. What went on in those years gone by? And there's no judgment on it. What went on to take you off the track? What went on to maybe that we aren't sitting where we really wanted to be for retirement? And, now again, we're going to take it back to that course correction. You're not judged. You should never feel bad about where you are because life happens. It's just, do you stay on track to make sure you continue to be on track and we get ourselves to where we want to be by the time we've made that retirement age? And then when we look at 55 and onwards, that's when reality really hits. We've now hit where, you know, where am I sitting with where I wanted to be at 55? Am I ready for retirement? What's my legacy I want to leave for my family or for donations or anything? What's the legacy that I want to leave behind? What's my preservation that I want? Because eventually one day we all want to stop working at one point, whether it's we stop because we have to or we stop because, we just decide we want to do more traveling or whatever it is. So what's that preservation? What do we need to have to last us to the ends of our lives? Because statistically, we are living longer than we ever have. So, we can't rely on the government pensions. They're there to help us, but we want to be sure that we're set up and you're set up for those later years in life. for the unexpected, whether it's unexpected health, whether it's, unexpected, your job's ended early. Where do we want to go with that? And we want to be independent. So that's part of the planning when you get to 55 staying independent. You want to protect what you've worked so hard all these years to get. You want to protect that and make sure it's still working for you. You want to reduce your stresses. And this is all so important when we make a decision on what we're doing with our finances, because finances are probably the biggest stresses in all of our lives. So you want to reduce that stress. You need the clarity, the support, the dignity. What's your lifestyle? And your loved ones. Your loved ones are really important too at all stages of your life. But as we get older, we want to make sure that our loved ones are taken care of, that they're supported, and that we can pass on this knowledge to them or pass on the names of people that have helped you through the years. So that's the really important pieces as we get older. And as I just, went through all those years, you know, I look back at when I was 18, 19, 20 years old, and I thought, oh, I've got miles ahead of me before I hit retirement age and I look at where I am now and I'm like, I'm in that age group of where, oh my goodness, it's like, you know, 15, 20 years out. And it's like, where did those years go? So it happens faster than we really realize. So it's just working with someone and making that decision. You're going to stay on that path will eliminate all your stresses. It'll make sure you're in a solid position that you can do what you have decided to do and live your life the way you want to instead of living your life the way that you have to because we haven't taken the time to do those course corrections. So the universal truth on all of this is you don't need the answers. You just need the willingness to start. And that will set your path. And the decision is that, when you're ready to look at it, you're going to understand it and take one step to align all of your goals. That's where your decision is made.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And that brings me, you've touched on so many things. You've touched on making a decision. You've touched on, having a plan. And you've also brought about a really big topic that brings us into comfort and, conformity. And so what I'm hearing from you is, as we stretch across life and life passes us by, what does that really mean? That can mean different things to different people. And when we're creating our abundance, when we're creating our reality, when we're creating the space so that we can move into our higher identity and into that wealthy, abundant lifestyle and decisions, where has the time gone by? And I hear from a lot of people, they're like, oh my goodness, 10 years went by, 20 years went by. And in making those decisions, did we decide to stay in comfort or did we decide to be uncomfortable? Really look in the mirror, really write out what we want. And did we stay responsible to that? Did we make the hard choices? Did we not so much sacrifice, but did we delay the gratification from right now so that we could enjoy maybe in a year or two? Or did we choose to continue to take that choice of comfort? And it was incredible because I had a conversation with someone and they were talking about it wasn't, the big decisions matter, but so do the little ones. And it's the little ones that you silently make that maybe nobody other than you knows. And those are the ones that may not show up a week from now, a month from now, but a year from now, you are definitely going to see the fruits of your results of the choices that you've made. And yes, we're all big on making a plan, but in the knowing doing gap of where we're going and the decisions that we're making, I find that we need to also look at the decisions that we're not making. And those are the ones that really creep up. And when somebody says, you know what, I'll just skip going to the gym today, or I'll just skip that savings plan today, or I'll skip that plan, that I wanted to buy that house today. It's okay. The $20 isn't going to matter. That $100, I'll just take that $2,000 vacation. It's not going to matter. It's no big deal. It might not be a big deal today, but further on down the road and your self-esteem, what are you actually sacrificing? Finances are such a big component of our lives, but so is our identity, and so is our self-esteem, and so is the impact on ourselves. And every time we negotiate with ourselves and we say, oh no, I'll do it later, or I'll start putting that money aside later, or I'll start doing this, or it's okay for right now, and you've got, your community that maybe you're associating with, and they're like, oh no, it's no big deal, just do it next week. Next week comes and you're right back, you're negotiating with yourself, you're like, oh no, okay, I'll do it the following week. The following week comes, you haven't followed through, and the price you're paying for not following through to yourself is one of the biggest things that we sacrifice. And when we're building our identity and we're talking about going from, the different ages that we go through in life and the decisions that we make over the course of our lives, when you start negotiating with yourself and you continue to choose comfort over discomfort or delay in order to feel that satisfaction and to grow as a person, and sometimes have those difficult conversations with yourself about how you're dealing with your wealth, how you're looking at abundance, how you're looking at work or what you do. Are you incorporating your lifestyle into your work, or are you at a job that you just hate and you don't like going to? Are you just going because that's the status quo? That's what everybody does. That's what your friends do. But is that what you really want to do? And so I think as we're moving and we're progressing and we're growing, yes, these big conversations are important, but we also need to look at what we're sacrificing to our own identity. And when we want these big quantum leaps, and when we want to really grow into abundance, and when we want to have the wealth, which gives us the choices and the opportunities, because we're not just staying in survival, we have the financial abundance in order to do what we want, in order to make different choices so that we're not in that, oh, I've got to stay in this job because I'm in survival. You know, Maybe it was those 5 years of those little decisions that, maybe you could have made different ones. The whole world didn't know that you skipped your workout. The whole world didn't know that you had, you could have put money aside, but you chose not to, but you're going to know. And, the identity of a wealthy, abundant person is somebody who makes a firm decision and then they follow through. They don't negotiate. They don't go, oh, I'll do it later. Or when you're waking up in the morning and you're like, tomorrow I'm going to get up early. This is what I'm going to do. And then you hit the snooze button. That's negotiating. You're negotiating with yourself. And those little decisions will start negotiating into the big ones that can really, really matter quickly. And you're going to see them right away. So those are excellent, excellent points. I'm really glad that you brought them up.
To add on a little bit to the comfort and the discipline too, like I like how you say too, and you're so right that when you make that decision not to go in the gym in the morning, or you make that decision not to make that $100 payment into your retirement savings or your tax free, whatever else, and you've built it and you've gone on a holidays, well, that $2,000, it seems like a little bit at the time that you've made that decision, but it sure is a lot at the end of the day that could have been earning you way more than that vacation that is done and gone. And that's also part of the comfort there is, yeah, I made this commitment of making that $100 contribution or deposit. I need to move forward and do that because that's my commitment. And that's your discipline, is to stick with that road. But the other discipline on that is, if it's really important for you to go on that holiday, or really important that you want this special car, when when we're talking as advisors and we're talking as planners with our clients and advisors and we're building all these plans, that's where you say, like my clients say to me, yes, this is really important, all building my retirement and building my wealth and making sure that I've got a legacy for myself and my family. But I do want to have fun too. Well, that's part of what we do together, and that's part of what my job is to carve that piece out for you and set it aside in a different savings plan that is still going to grow your money, but that's where you're going to take those wants out of, or those, oh my gosh, what happened? I've got an emergency here. Those are what we're going to build for so that your plan on your life goal is not deviating and you can stay consistent with it and be very disciplined.
Yeah, and that's what I love what you're saying is you're spreading across, you're being abundant in all areas. And that's what I find the most important thing is that we continue to strive for that abundant thinking and that we're living in abundant way and we're living from the end so that we're not feeling like we're in lack and limitation and we have to trade one thing for another. You can do everything that you want to do in life. It's just about creating the space. And that's what you're saying by allocating, if we're using finances, when we're allocating finances to different goals and, different things that we value in this period of time, it's not about choosing one or the other. It's about having everything. It's just doing it in the right way. And it's doing it in a way that works, that empowers you, that gets you excited, where you see the results, where you're moving in that forward direction, and you can start building on that momentum. It makes you feel really, really good. And you know that you're not just floundering and, going through life on a raft that's, just floating kind of everywhere, and you're going from one comfort to another. When everybody's going out and they're just frivolously throwing money around, you're like, no, this is where my money's going. And like I said, you might not see it in the first month, you might not see it in the second month, but that commitment, that discipline, that choosing you and choosing what you want over, just whatever you see on the TV or whatever you see out in the community, you're building that empowerment and you're building that self-esteem and you have made that choice. And no matter what happens, you're going to continue moving towards what you've made that decision on. And when people say, you know what, I want to, reach $1 million and I want to do all these things, and they're looking at their habits, and maybe their habits are not moving in the direction of what a high performing person or a very wealthy person would be doing, this is where we start to see our knowing doing gap. And if you want to be a high performer and be a very wealthy person, if, you're not making those decisions to allocate funds in a wide expansive way, and maybe you're sleeping in, or maybe you're not doing these things, or if you had extra time and you're just sitting in front of the TV scrolling mindlessly for hours and hours and hours, you're not putting it to where it could be of better use. And I had a person say to me, it was another person in finance, and they said, for every dollar that you earn, it's an employee. And what are your employees doing? What are they doing today for you? And when we talk about being abundant and multiplying our money and multiplying our time, it moves beyond what we can just do physically, because there's only so many hours in the day. We all get the same amount of hours, but how do we multiply ourselves and grow ourselves exponentially in a bigger way to make those really big quantum leaps financially that we're able to do with ease, instead of just with our physical hands or our mind or selling on a phone? What can we do so that we're expanding and multiplying our time? And if you start looking at your dollars as employees and you go, okay, well, I want to put my employees to work, what kind of job are your dollars doing? Are they just constantly eating out, or are they growing and maximizing for you in a way that's going to help you get that new home or that new car? Or, not only take one vacation a year, but why don't we take three? And if your dollars are going to work for you and you're going to work for you, then you can start feeling such a level of wealth that you've never experienced before. And you get that internal fortitude and you get that internal self-esteem where you're like, yeah, I want to do more because I know not only am I working, but so is my money. And it's getting me to where I want to go.
Very true. Very, very true. Great, great statements. And that is our world. And then the other thing too, it's getting you where you want, getting us where we want to go. But it's also when we're on those vacations, we're not sitting with it in the back of our head that, oh my goodness, I'm going to be so far behind. This is all going on my credit card, or, how am I going to pay this off? It's like, I'm going on vacation and I'm relaxing. I don't have to think about where these funds are coming from. I don't have to worry about paying 21, 22 upwards on my credit card when I get home because I can't pay it off. So making those smart, confident decisions at the start of the game is what's going to make you the winner at the end of the game. And the winner is the winner of your life. Nobody else's, but your life.
I love what you said. It's your life, it's your responsibility, and it's your choice and your decision and your plan. And how amazing is that? Like that's what we get to choose to do. We get to design how we want to live, and we need to think big. The biggest mistake I ever made was not thinking big enough, not dreaming big enough, not thinking, why do I need to live in the same neighborhood as anybody else? Why do I need to drive the same car as everybody else? Take the same. What do I really, really want? And I love what you touched on earlier when you said you don't have to worry about how. And I find so many people get stuck in the how. Everybody's like, well, how do I do this? How can I do this? How can I make this? How can I create this? If you are just stuck on that hamster wheel of how, you're never going to move forward because you're so stuck in one part of the equation. And so it's not our job to micromanage absolutely everything. We are creative beings and we have the capacity to use our imagination in the most incredible way and let the universe and let the people that are going to come into your life and help propel you forward do the how with you and for you instead of every single person just being concerned about the how and getting stuck in that anxiety and getting stuck, basically just stuck, and not being able to move forward with the plan because they start to get paralysis about what do I do next, or they become paralyzed and not being thinking that they're able to achieve what they want. And that's why I love the thinking into results, because it reminds us that the most important workhouse in our mind is our imagination. And you are only limited to what you can imagine in your mind. And that, when it comes to finances, I find that, our beliefs through life are very limited. There's a lot of scarcity, there's a lot of lack and limitation. And as we move into an identity of abundance and an identity of creating and building wealth and becoming financially free and enjoying, all the opportunity that money allows us to afford and do, the imagination is so incredibly important, because if you can't imagine it, then you don't even know where you're going to go and you wouldn't even think of what's possible. And that's why I love, mentorship financially and people using a service like yours where you're starting to become mentored with your money. It helps to open up that creative part of us that we used to use as kids. And, you see kids all the time and they have these massive ideas about how they want their life to be. And they're so incredibly excited. And I always tell people, ask a child, do they ever worry about how? We sure do. I know they don't. They're just like, I'm going to fly into outer space and be an astronaut. They don't worry about how. They don't worry about what ship they're going to fly in. And so I find for, when we're working towards our goals and building our financial buckets and putting the money into these different things for what we want to move towards, Start imagining. I always say to people, when you're talking about saving for a trip, what do you want that trip to look like? Don't worry about how much it's going to cost. Take a break from that. What kind of trip do you want to go on? And sit on that vacation. If you want to go to the beach, sit on the beach, feel the sun, get that nice smoothie, enjoy what's going on in the buffet. Don't worry about how I'm going to pay for it, because that's where mentorship comes in. And that's where you're going to have yourself, where you're able to say, okay, this is how we're going to do it. And then you start getting excited and building that momentum. You make the decisions, you stick to the plan, and you start to grow. And as your identity builds into that person that's going to take more than one trip a year, and that person that's going to live in the type of house that you want to live in, as you build that momentum and as you make the decision and you stick to it and you don't negotiate with yourself so that you're sliding back into your old identity and back into that old comfort, you want to, continue to embrace the discomfort of becoming the new person who's going to take those trips, who's going to maybe not eat out today, and they're going to choose to allocate those employees and those funds to doing what they really want to do and what their imagination really lets them run free and create, and no longer make those negotiative decisions of procrastination where they end up not moving forward. And in 6 months' time, instead of being on the beach, they're exactly where they are today. And that's exactly what they said they didn't want to do. If you don't want to stay where you are today, then you need to embrace new ideas and change, and embracing the discomfort so that you're able to move forward.
Yeah, and exactly. And that's the thing. It's embracing, moving forward, embracing that change and getting the results that you want. I talk to a lot of young people these days, or a lot of parents of younger people these days. And I hear so often, and owning a home is such a big privilege to so many people. And it's probably one of the biggest investments you'll ever make. And I hear so many people say to me, we'll never be able to own a home in this economy. We'll never be able to own a home in BC because prices are so high. Oh, they are, absolutely. But if that's what you want to do, let's find a way to make that happen. Let's break it down into realistic, achievable goals that can make that happen. Maybe you're not going to go out and your first home's going to be a $2 million or a $3 million home. Maybe your first home is going to be, an 800, $900,000 condo that's one bedroom, and den. Maybe it's small, but it's still yours. And that's how we start to build and grow to move into your next stage of your home ownership, the next stage of your home ownership. So taking that first step again is making that decision of sitting down with someone like myself and finding it out and just being forward on what is it that's important to you. Because then we'll together put it into a real picture that it's going to come to true life and flourish for you, because we're going to make a plan that's going to allow you to build the savings to get that down payment on whether it's a house, car, or whatever. But it breaks my heart when I hear people say, oh, I'll never be able to own a house, or I'll never be able to do this, because I get it's tough, believe me, but we can make it work.
Yeah, no, you definitely can. And it's so important when you're talking about, is it hard? Well, what is really hard? Is it hard to not own a home? Or is it uncomfortable in allocating those funds to what matters and what's important to you? And I always try to remember to reframe things. We want to say yes. Okay, so if you're going to buy your very first home, for example, and you're looking at $1 million, um, and so you're saying, okay, so yes, it's a certain amount of money. It is just a matter of reframing it. Am I choosing to put this money into the home? What's more uncomfortable? Rent, some people enjoy renting, some people don't. And so it's just a matter of what your values are and what matters to you and what kind of lifestyle that you're really wanting to have.
Exactly. Yeah, that's so true. What lifestyle do you want to do? What commitments, or pardon me, what lifestyle do you want to have? What commitments are you prepared to make? And, you know, what are you going to do when it becomes uncomfortable? Are you going to make that decision to stay the road and let it be uncomfortable? Or are you going to go back to saying, uh, I'm going to just make the decision to not put that money away for now. So you need to be uncomfortable to be comfortable, and you need to make that decision to stay the route so that you can be proud of yourself and you can celebrate those wins. So, again, when we talk about why people avoid financial decisions for so long, it comes back to money is a very emotional thing. It's not logical. So we run money from our heart. We don't run money decisions from our logic and our thinking. So people will put off making that decision and avoid the financial decisions just because they have the fear of being judged, they have shame, or it's going to confirm what their worries are. Like if I go and sit down with someone and someone says, "Hey, yeah, we're going to be tight on getting to that goal," um, that's a big worry for people. Doesn't mean we're not going to get there. And they're afraid of hearing, no, that goal will never be achieved. And that's another reason why people just will pull away, not make those financial decisions because now they feel shameful because I wanted this goal, I left it too long. Someone's going to judge me because I left it too long. So I might as well just not deal with it at all, which really makes it worse in the long term as we move forward. Um, Avoidance of making that final decision, uh, it's it feels safer. And in the short term, it might feel safer, and it is safer, but in the long term, it's really costly because you haven't started to build your wealth, you haven't started to investments, you haven't started meeting those goals. And for every dollar that you've got sitting in your pocket, that dollar is not going to grow because it's not working for you. And that's where I like how you said, Anna, you pull it back to that dollar's your employee. So if you're going to pay that dollar to your employee, are you going to be okay if they sit all day and do nothing? No. So take that dollar, take that employee, give them direction on what they want to do, and let it work for you, let it grow. And when people understand that and can get past that feeling of the path of resistance and make that decision and just start that financial journey, they're going to feel so much better themselves. Their money is going to work hard for them. They're going to hit their goals and they will walk through life so financially sound and healthy that that's going to take the major stress away from them.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and it brings it into faith. And we're not talking about religion, but we're talking about faith and faith in yourself, faith in your decisions, faith in your choices, faith in the universe that you know that you will always be provided for and that everything is working out for you no matter what you do. Even if it's uncomfortable, you know that you're moving and you're growing. And every time we choose to grow in our finances as well as in our own personal development, it's usually not it's easy, it's simple, but it's very uncomfortable because we are creatures of habit and growth makes us stretch. Making financial goals makes us stretch. And stretching is discomfort. Just like when you go to the gym and you first start exercising, you don't feel great the next day.
No,
You don't
it
feel
hurts.
fantastic. Your muscles hurt, you're sore, you got ice packs, heat packs. You're like, oh my gosh. It's the same thing with growth. And we just need to remind ourselves that it's, yes, we're moving towards getting a desired result, but what kind of person are you becoming along the way? And that comes back to your decisions and your choices and your beliefs. So when we persist, persistence, as Napoleon Hill says, persistence is just another word for faith. If we didn't have faith, we would never persist.
Right.
It's exactly the same thing. So when you're choosing to make these decisions and you're allocating and you're stretching yourself, you're growing to become that person that's going to be comfortable with where you're wanting to go. So you do have that ease. So you do have the financial wealth and abundance of that person that's going to have no issues in becoming. And our identity and our beliefs and our faith, they're so intertwined. Financial beliefs are, a lot of families don't talk about it. I've talked to a lot of people, they didn't grow up talking about money. Money was not a comfortable topic. It was something that you discussed quietly in the bedroom behind closed doors where nobody else could hear what's going on. And, what we need to do to break that cycle is start talking about money. Money is not a boogeyman in the closet unless you make it. And so when we're building that identity, what kind of beliefs, what kind of thoughts do you have around money? Do you love money, or do you think just rich people are bad? Or all those rich people, they're not doing enough. So, or do you believe that it's better to be poor and give all your money away? And so, financial decisions and financial planning, a lot of it has to do, it is an emotional decision, and it's emotional because it comes down to our beliefs. What are your beliefs around money? I remember I was talking to an incredible woman. She was building a multi-million dollar business. And she said the biggest thing that set her off in her journey to abundance and wealth, she sat down and she wrote a letter to herself about money. And once she had poured out her whole heart, she started to see where those beliefs were and where her lack of awareness and where the blocks were that were holding her back to getting to where she wanted to go. And after she had poured her heart out and cried and gone through all these big feelings, that letter was her roadmap and the most important piece of information that she wasn't aware of about herself, that was, getting in the way. And once she had cleared out and became aware of those old beliefs, she was like, loved them, said thank you. And she was able to move forward and she built a multi-million dollar company. And so it's so incredibly powerful as we build our awareness and as we grow into that abundant identity, that we're using that to propel us and start feeling comfortable and start being empowered about the financial decisions that we're making.
Yeah, and that's very good analogy. And and that's I've done that exercise with people as well, and told them to kind of take it away. There's no right or wrong answers on it, but think about, what did you hear growing up about finances, or what do you hear in your circle of friends right now? What are they saying about finances? Is it you'll always have an abundance, or everything will be okay, it always works out? Or, are you hearing, did you grow up hearing that, you're never going to have enough? Or no, can't do that. We can't buy that. No, we don't have this. And start to weed that out, because those psychology is an amazing analogy of what our beliefs are, because our brain will absorb stuff we hear without realizing how impactful it is on our beliefs moving forward. So sometimes just journaling and writing all that down weeds out the things that are your negative thoughts about whether it doesn't matter what it is in life, but we're looking at finances right now, but it'll weed out those negative thoughts on finances so that you can continue to grow to be a better part of yourself.
Fantastic. Thanks, Rhonda. This was absolutely incredible. I hope this inspires everybody. Hit like and subscribe and check out Rhonda on her channel on Calder Financial and check her out on YouTube. Thanks, everybody. See you on the next video. There we go. Yeah, I can tell you're getting